We started with some positive signals regarding the topic we brought up. Then you directed me to something which there's no color involved. But it's this character who did the filibuster. Like this, if someone's gonna speak that loudly in front of a crowd, like he started a website called Don'tFundIt.com to get rid of Obamacare. What he's calling Obamacare. It's the Affordable Care Act. It's gonna give like 40 million people affordable health care. But when do the congressmen not know? It was just how much are they just politicians? Some of these people. The we made other videos that were having the real block on getting a health. Well, no, I mean, if when you got said they're saying like don'tfundit.com websites is being set up, I mean that means the problem with not there's so many interrelated issues, but you'd expect the politicians to be speaking to the people about it. But if everyone's uninformed because they're afraid to do a lot of particularly like people at college, like the type of college education, afraid to admit they don't know the basics of something. But with the government shut down and with it being shut down over healthcare, we mentioned that part of the reason we get moved towards healthcare is we have this problem. We lost control over our economy. But if they're going to talk about, if we're bringing into it now the issue of the debt, the national debt, you know why people say like we're getting close in terms of our what's happened to our economy and our ability to like build a national healthcare system or like have a stable economy, have a currency that isn't constantly depreciating. Like those are interrelated issues. But these kind of congressmen, like the idea that they're talking about anything behind closed doors or that has any substance when they're making speeches like this, like cheering for like don't fund the Affordable Care Act, I really don't know why. Still don't know the reasoning behind that. It's certainly not. It's not. It's just some. There'll be some affordable health care for 40 million people. But we want to go first and raise this issue of the debt. What's frustrating is a lot of people, particularly younger people, as I said, that book, The Political Economy of the American Revolution, is being bought up like crazy by people who dropped out of college but like want to know what's actually taking place in their country and like how far away from what is going on. But you see, the whole issue with the debt, and I say, well, look, if they're gonna bring this into it now, like, are we gonna default on the debt? The reason the president has to come out and say things like, well, this is our understanding, but put the healthcare thing on pause for a second. If the fact that he has to sort of like describe it to people like, well, look, we're not paying our bills. It's like if you don't pay your mortgage, like the fact that the public has to be talked to like that's the only way, and but they can't talk about it in a more serious way because no one really knows much about like the national debt and like how it interrelates with all this other stuff. Um, that that can't go on anymore because it's also see, whereas Barack Obama certainly knows, like he knows what all those issues are. Just the public has to be like talked to in this way. Like, well, it's kind of like when you don't pay your bills. Like, it's the best thing. You kind of like talking to people who are really big, don't really know much about what's happening half the time, or have a misinformed impression of it. But like, if all their representatives, like the big thing that they say they still just starting websites like to repeal the health care, and risking and then shutting down the whole government, risking defaulting on the debt. When all that's interrelated, why we can't move towards health care? Why the debt is so big that we might have to default or raise the debt ceiling? It's all part of having lost control over our national economy. But none of the representatives, are they not economically literate? Because if these are the representatives and the population is so misinformed but afraid to admit it, Right, and the president, has to talk to everyone like they're children. Like, well, it's kind of like when you don't pay your bills. I mean, what see? If we understand correctly, we're experiencing like what we call like developing countries, like third world countries. They have a problem too, like with debt because they can't control their own wealthy people. Like they can't keep capital in the country. They have no protection on that. Neither do we. British banks, like, own billions of dollars of our currency. Like, we try to grow our economy, they threaten to sell it off. I mean, we lost control over our economy. That's why there's no physical economy. We didn't lose control of it. We got a structural adjustment over the last 30 years, but people should know. I mean, if they're out of work and they're finding out we made default on the national debt, like they should know the reason the debt's so high is we are no longer exporting anything. All we do is import, and that's a big part of like that's the debt. That's where it's coming from. But then also, if we had some control over the economy and there was still any production here, then and not just like a prison labor economy, not only would we not have this problem with the massive national debt, but there'd be work for people. But we have the same experiences developing countries are having. What they're complaining about. It's not they're just complaining. There's like terrorism because of it. Yeah, in other countries we call developing countries, like right, they can't keep capital in the country, and the new like the neoliberal thing of the last 30 years is no limits on foreign direct investment. But we have that problem too. British banks like own up all kinds of like our currency and everything. They'll threaten to sell it off if we should actually move to a national healthcare system. So we have no, or build the physical economy back. But that's also why the debt is so high. How did the Congress that they're uninformed about these things? Are people like your narrator have to like talking to younger people like I don't know buy the book The Political Economy of the American Revolution like older people don't really understand this much either. We're waiting for someone like educated to talk to the population about it. I don't know.